Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas or opinions expressed by myself, the guest, or a caller may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It's the state of giving and receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. So what then is Enlightenment Evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to a more complex human being, living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. Hey everybody, this is the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate everybody in the chat room tonight, everybody watching live, everybody watching on the listen back. Tonight, we have an absolutely amazing guest with some amazing things we're going to get into. A friend who I met back in 2016 in Detroit, Michael Lee Hill, an amazing guy. A lot of you will know him for his UFO footage, for his music, and a lot of other great things, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But as you guys know, we have to do some announcements real quick up front to get all the stuff that we want to talk about that's heading up on the network and the show and ET Whisper. So we're going to start off with our calendar. Next week, we have Gordon Goosenbury, and he is an amazing guy, a creator. He's one who's not really into our community at all. But he is a very, very amazing guy, and he's working on a project that's going to be really great, and we're going to bring him in and talk about the project, about him, about life, about all the great things that happen, and that's the first month, or the first Wednesday of next month, October 5th. On the 12th of October, we're going to have Chris Matthew, who is from the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. An amazing, fascinating guy. Another guy who does a podcast the week after that, Faust Checho from Far Out with Faust. Amazing guy. The week after that is going to be a big one with Shelley Young. She's a real good friend of ours, a channeler. She channeled on the 2015 channel panel, which is free for everybody to see. And that's the one we did, the first live channel panel me and Kalina did back in 2015 in Los Angeles. And a lot of people who were there had a really powerful experience with her. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. After that, we've got the one and only Ruben Langdon. He's the guy who does Interview with Extra Dimensionals, and also has a connection to our guest tonight, which is amazing. We might talk about that a little bit if it comes up. After that, on November 9th, we're going to have Daniel Scranton, the one and only Daniel Scranton, good friend, longtime friend at Channeler. Also, and then Michaela Sheldon, another channeler on the 16th, the only other channeler I know who lives in Michigan, to be a matter of fact. And then on the 23rd, a very special guest, pardon me, one who only people who come to this show and hang out in the chat room know. That's the Adam Twister, an amazing guy. We're going to be talking about some really great stuff. We've got Ryder Lee, who's also the member of the podcast. He's the host of the podcast, Raised by Giants. He will be here on November 30th. December, we have a few guests, and we're going to get those guests announced probably in the next week. I already know who they are. We just got to see who falls on what date. And then on December 11th, we have another person who's going to be announced very soon as well. And that'll be great. We're not doing a podcast on the 4th of January due to birthday conflict. And that would be my birthday. Kalina's is 3 days after on January 7th. and we take that whole week off as well as the week before for Christmas, Christmas Eve, New Year's. We take a couple weeks off, and then we get done with our birthdays and we start back to the year. So the 11th will be the first show of next year, 2023, and we already have a guest booked, and she is amazing. We'll talk about her soon. As for the Enlightenment Evolution Network, we have shows coming to the network that will be presenting very soon. One of our last guests, Daniel James, a guy that a lot of you enjoyed, he will be doing at least one of his own shows on our network. Kalina Angel will be doing her show on the network, and we will be having more people to announce. William Piper, Stadia Pro Gaming, he's going to be doing a show. He was also a guest on my show earlier this year, one of the first probably 6 to 8 shows after I returned earlier this year. So he will have his own show along with his wife and maybe a buddy. But either way, we've got shows coming to the network, and as they come, we will announce. As for the ET Whisper, there is an announcement, and the announcement is, despite how we've worked to create a channeling class at the end of every month, the end of this year is too busy. We are not going to be able to do any more channeling classes this year, but we will have a course coming out this year before the end of the year on sexual trauma, and it's going to be a really big and important one, talking about sexual trauma, talking about sexuality in general, talking about sexuality throughout dimensions, sexuality energetically, the physical aspects, just so much about sexuality and sexual trauma and healing that energy. Ardif and myself have been working on this with my friend John Craig, who's part of the Light Luminary Code guest, him and Kama, his wife, or a partner. They were on a show earlier. We're working on that as we speak, and that should be done before the end of the year. So it will be amazing, guys. Everything will be great. But that's about it for the ET Whisper for now. Of course, we've got everything going. We got a lot of things up in the air, and we'll announce those as we got. If you want to get on the mailing list, then what I suggest, go to etwhisper.com. There will be a pop-up. Once that pop-up is done, it'll ask you if you want to join the mailing list. If you do, put your email there, and you will be added to the list. We have one coming out in the next couple days for the upcoming month and what's going on with us. So if you want to stay informed, that's probably the best way at this point. We try to blast out all of what we're doing to all the social media. Sometimes it doesn't land. But I've gone over for announcements. I want to talk about the guest that we've got coming in today. Like I said, I have known this man since 2016. We first met, and I'm very sure from the bottom of my heart, from my perspective, we met way before that. But in this life, in 2016, we connected in Detroit. Both of us were invited to do an event together. We were both speakers. We got to meet the day before, and we hit it off well. We spent the whole day together, the whole night, me and Kalina and him just hanging out and talking. And we talked about everything, the depth of awesomeness that is going to be in this conversation, to our personal lives and everything in between. And it really created a great bond. This guy himself, that you guys might know him for the UFO footages throughout, I want to say the early to mid 90s, all the way through to the 2000s, 2010s, tons of UFO footage were coming out on the Great Lakes, and Lake Erie specifically, I believe. And the Great Lakes are an amazing body of water around Michigan. We could talk about that later point. But these were great videos. And the beautiful thing coming out in the early to mid 90s, late 90s, it was a lot harder to fake footage back then. So most people, like when I met him, I didn't know much about his work or anything. But when I looked up who he was, when I saw that I'd be presenting with him, what I saw was a bunch of amazing UFO footages that I had seen 100 times before on UFO documentaries. And like my friend said back then, it was so hard to fake because if there was digital cameras, it was very obvious with the digital editing equipment that they had. And before that, it was literally nearly impossible. So everyone who's seen this footage knows how good it is and how great it is. But a little that you might not know about Michael Lee Hill, he's an award-winning musician, filmographer, and a UFO experiencer. His footage on the Lake Erie UFOs has created like a Billy Myers type buzz. And he seems to have developed an intuitive relationship with with the crafts, the beings that are in this craft. And in his home state of Ohio, he's been cataloged, has been cataloging videos after video of these UFOs. The phenomenon consists almost entirely of pulsing orbs of light, unusual lights seen with changing colors, converging. This footage is absolutely amazing, guys. If you ever get a chance to see it, look up his name, look up UFO footage on YouTube. There's thousands of videos out there with different people doing commentary on it. Stories of the unexplained phenomenon date back to over 150 years with the indigenous North American Indian tribes. And Michael happens to know a lot about the indigenous tribes here in North America too, as he has a very close bond with community there too. Fascinating man, but I think instead of talking about him, what we'll do is bring him in so that he can talk to you guys. Welcome, Michael. Hello. How are you tonight, brother?
Doing fantastic. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you're here tonight. I'm glad we have the opportunity to get a chance to chat. And for people in my own audience who might not know you, give them a chance to get to know you because, like I said, me and Kalina really loved our time with you. And you gave us a lot of great insight and thoughts about a lot of things that we hadn't thought about before, things we did think about and just didn't know. But before we get into too much about, the story of the UFOs and the story of all the work that you've done since, I kind of ask one question to all of the guests. I know your story, and everyone who's followed your work knows your story, and depending on how long they've been with you, might know aspects of your story because your story is a pretty big one, and we will touch some of that. But I'm trying to find out what gave Michael Lee Hill the ability to have a story when you're a kid, growing up, and a teenager, and a young adult. What types of things in your life happened to you or you went through that helped you create the version of you that was open to these possibilities of having a story?
Well, that's a great question. I guess right off the bat, I started at a very early age. I started having contact with, I guess, what you call tall grays. And to me, I didn't know what a gray was when I was 5 or 6 years old. I'd ask my mom, "How come Santa Claus's elves are coming to visit me? It's not Christmas." And I always, in those instances, they would draw me outside. My mom said she'd find me many times just standing in the backyard. And sometimes when I was drawn out there, I do remember that they would be, maybe it's a planted memory or whatever, but it was like they'd be handing me down gifts from like the top of the awning. And it just looked like Christmas gifts. And I don't remember what was in them, but these weren't scary, and so right along with just strange contact with star beings, I guess we can call them. Um, music has played such an important role in everything that unfolded. And so from a very early age, my parents knew I was just freaked out over music, so they got me a guitar very early. And my two uncles down in Virginia, they both played country music. And to me, it was really weird. I remember hearing them play it, and I'm like, oh my God, they're angels. They weren't just my uncles anymore. I was like, the music was so beautiful and harmonious, and so very early, I started learning, Hank Williams Jr., Hank Williams songs, and whatnot. And I found myself when I played music and I was creating music and I was feeling the vibrations of the guitar through my body that I felt a connection with source that I didn't feel anywhere else. And it was because of music. Um, so that's been ongoing all through my life. But I guess to get right to the point, it would have been in the mid 2000s when I was having band practice at my house here in East Lake, Ohio. I now live in Florida, by the way, but I was raised here in East Lake, Ohio, and
Fellow Midwestern guy.
yeah, I love it here. I'm here right now, actually, because stupid as it sounds, I've been in Florida for 5 years, but I found out my insurance is still only good in Ohio. So I'm having some checkups and getting some things straightened out. But anyhow, me and the bass player of my band took a break and we went into my backyard and we seen a craft really close. I live very close to Lake Erie, and the ship was right on the shore, and it was really big. And we sat there and watched it for about 10 minutes, and I didn't get that one on film, but it really sparked my curiosity to start finding out any little nooks and crannies I could go down to Lake Erie and find a beach or a little cove or whatever. And I had a Sony Handycam that I really wasn't using for anything, but that's what I started to use it for. Is I would put it on a tripod, and I would be ready and go down around sunset. And if a big orb of light flew by, I was ready to film it. And at the time, though, I didn't even know what these objects were because they're not your typical, you know, spacecraft made from metal and nuts and bolts. These look like, well, I can tell you, Bigelow Aerospace, who the Pentagon, paid the $22 million to look into the subject. What people are going to find out is it wasn't to look into whether UFOs are real. They already know. They were studying um, this phenomenon over the Skinwalker Ranch for about 25 years. What they're truly looking for was people who were in contact. So they contacted me and let me know the real deal are these orbs of light. It's what they've been studying. They said, we know you're in contact with the real thing because the light phenomenon that you've filmed is the same. And we can get into that too because of my being contacted by Bigelow, I learned a lot about what they know. And it's interesting because that whole story, the Pentagon, everything, is eventually it leads to Lake Erie UFOs. And with, I guess, to my story, I hate that it sounds weird, my story, but you know what, the Lake Erie UFOs truly is, because once I started to film these things and end up on the History Channel, which we get into how that happened, well, I started to become a researcher of the phenomenon here. And actually, I have a very huge library of Lake Erie UFO newspaper clippings, actually going back into the 1800s, which I think is really important because kind of negates the idea, well, that's ours, that's our technology. Well, not if, in the 1800s, local Cleveland newspapers were reporting, they called them wizard lights out over the lake, and the indigenous, First Nation tribes that were here, they knew all about it and what they were, because it's truly, well, we can get into this, but it's the Anunnaki human hybrids, and I believe that those orbs of light are truly Merkaba fields. That, but I'm maybe getting ahead of myself. But that's the deal of, why I started to have this was music, contact, and then them revealing themselves over Lake Erie in just ways that couldn't be. I took all doubt away from myself, and they allowed me to film them.
This is something that was reoccurring nearly every time you went down to the water after your first contact, from what I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, when I would go down, I actually hated filming them because imagine these most beautiful multi-dimensional colored lights, this huge house-sized ball of like multi-dimensional colors, and I'm looking through it. That was an old Sony Handycam, and I was looking through a little viewfinder, and everything was black and white. And so I started to actually out loud, because most of the time I was the only one down there back then. Not a lot of people was enjoying the lake, I guess. But I would tell them, listen, I've got some great footage of you already. So unless you start doing something different, come in closer, do some type of behavior that I've not seen before, I'm not filming you anymore, because I'd rather just, I don't need just tons of the same footage. I would rather have that light hit my retina. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
sure enough, though, they always would come in closer. They would have different phenomena, and so I just kept right on filming, and I knew it was important. And so, yeah, that's where the footage came from. But it was also, uh, because of I had a deep respect for a UFO researcher whose name is David Sarita, and he had a film called The Case for NASA UFOs that I really, still to this day, I think it's one of the best UFO documentaries. So it gets into a weird story of, I had filmed these UFOs. I had my first interview with CBS News here in Cleveland, and right before the interview, I was attacked, and the doctor said it looked like someone had hit me with brass knuckles, and it shattered my face, broke my jaw in 3 places, and so I almost canceled the interview, and but something came over me. I knew it wasn't coincidental, the timing of it, and something just came over me. I was like, I'll mumble through it, sons of bitches, you know, and so when I did the interview, and I didn't cancel the interview, and when they came to my house, all their equipment started failing, making weird whistling noises and everything else. And finally, they got it done. They got enough tapes. And then that night, when it went to air live at 11 o'clock, something took out their TV station, the actual CBS. And this stuff's on my YouTube channel, by the way, because
Yep.
back then I did have a VHS tape going, and so I filmed that actual broadcast, and you can see it. Like, I don't know, maybe an EMP pulse, but something took out all the computers in the actual TV station.
I saw
So
that footage, and when it went out, it actually had some kind of code writing on it, right as it blacked out, if I remember correctly.
indeed, the ones and zeros, like the binary code. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can imagine that scared me, dude. I was watching that with my face wired shut, and then I seen something take out the the station when they tried to play my footage, and I was thinking, what have I got myself into? I felt fearful for my life. Like, am I gonna have a knock right now from the Men in Black? And so what happened was, the next day I decided, you know what, I'm gonna send my footage to who I respected the most, David Sarita. And I didn't know he was working on the UFOs Unplugged with Dan Aykroyd documentary. And he said, yeah, sure, send me your footage. And well, he flipped out when he seen the footage. He's like, oh my God, this is some of the best footage. This is before even the UFO hunters happened. And he ended up using 4 of my clips in the Dan Aykroyd UFO documentary. But that whole
Hmm.
thing led to us partnering on a film called From Here to Andromeda. And it's weird how sometimes spirit works, because I think if they wouldn't have attacked me, and they wouldn't have tried to shut me up and took out the TV station. I'm talking about Team Bad Cop, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, I probably wouldn't have sent my stuff to David Sarita, and it had the reverse effect that all of a sudden, it kind of brought the attention to the footage. And the same thing happened a little bit later, and Whitley Strieber took it under his wing, and said how it's probably one of the best researched. The Lake Erie UFOs, he said, was one of the best researched UFO mass sightings in history. And again, at that point, they had tried to stop it's called the Pythagoras Conference that I was involved with. And instead of them, every time they try to shut it down, it has the opposite effect. And more, more visibility and a bigger light is shown on it. So I think that they've learned pretty much don't try to shut it down because it's going to have the exact opposite effect. But that's how the whole UFO, the Lake Erie UFO subject hit the masses. And
See,
so
that's to me that's a little crazy too. I didn't realize that you had connected with David Sarita to first launch a lot of those videos out to the public. I interviewed David Sarita back in 2014 or 2015 for this show about a year before I met you, because he was
small
doing a lot
world.
of work. Yeah, I know, right? And a lot of good information he worked on too when it came to harmonic sound vibration, which takes us into another field. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, I remember you talking about you saw the UFOs and you kind of felt them and then you started connecting with them. How long did it take before you started realizing how connected you were with these beings and exactly who or what or how they were operating with their conscious connection to you, and kind of the history that went back with it?
Well, at first I had no clue. I just didn't know what it was. I actually thought maybe this is some kind of weird atmospheric condition, like giant ball lightning or something. I didn't know. But one of the weirdest things that happened was, my some of my footage went viral, and that brought the History Channel to my door, and I ended up doing a show called UFO Hunters, and season one and episode Alien Contact. In this episode, by the way, we'll have to get into this, because some of my stuff went the footage went viral. They contacted me and ended up doing a whole show. And in the show, they flew me to Boston to have my blood work done by a Harvard professor whose name was David Sistrom. And it was revealed in that episode that I don't have normal human blood. And that sounded as weird to me as it sounded to anyone else. And I was like, wait a minute, this isn't a TV show anymore. What are you talking about? And he said, what do you think? What do you think unknown means? And he said, we don't know what to tell you. This is the Harvard professor. He said, if I had to venture a guess, there's some type of virus at work that is unknown to mankind that's tricking your brain into releasing massive amounts of this enzyme called creatine kinase. But anyhow, in this show, at the very end of the production shoot for it, the main producer from the History Channel brought a laptop over to me. So we want to show you some footage from the UK. And when he showed it to me, I was like, oh my God, this is the exact same footage, same objects that are over Lake Erie. And he laughed. He goes, yeah, that's why we're showing it to you. That was the first time I started to realize this is not just over Lake Erie, it's happening worldwide. And also because of that, I started to collect a large collection of news broadcasts from all over the world through my History Channel connections. And I started where I had like about a whole hour of them. And I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to release all of these clips because I started to realize it's being presented all over the world, but they're being broadcast to the public as isolated events that have nothing to do with one another. But when you see these news broadcasts back to back, you can see, well, those are the exact same objects. They're flying in the same formations. They're the same orbs of light that now people now will know best that of the Skinwalker Ranch light phenomenon. But so I put all these clips together, and I had over an hour at that point, and I named it "The Anunnaki Are Showing Up Worldwide," and that little compilation is about well over 1 million views now on YouTube. It's like the little documentary that could, you know.
Holy
Um,
moly.
yeah, dude, I would have never thought this, but Some of my clips that were on the History Channel are over 1 million views. All in all, my YouTube channel has over 5 million views, and that's one of the things we could get into. The elite have met me and said, we've been in control of what gets released to the public for a very long time. And here you are with your YouTube channel with over 5 million views. Your TV show on the UFO hunters was what was actually responsible for getting the series re what's the word I'm looking for, picked up again for a second season, and it's a fan favorite. It's been shown over about 15 million times on the History Channel, and they said, and we're not even in the loop. They said, how do you think that makes us feel? I said, none of your business. You know what I mean? Like it has nothing to do with you, and you have no say so on what I talk about, what happened yesterday or what happened a week ago. And so we can get into that all too, because I eventually, because of Bigelow contacted me, got contacted by the reverse engineering division of the NSA, who is known as the ACIO. And pretty much they brought me into the wing of the actual group of the NSA that's in reverse engineering technology programs already with the Anunnaki. Because what happened is after that History Channel show aired, I was invited to go to a festival in New York called Sirius Rising. At that time, I didn't know what an Anunnaki was. This was in 2008, and I didn't know they were Syrian. So I didn't have any clue. I thought I was going camping, for honestly. So when I got there, I was met by some beings who was very capable of demonstrating to me that they weren't normal human beings, because they became faceless right in front of me. And as actually my first words to them was, "Can I see your true faces?" And they said, "No, you'll have to wait till tomorrow to see our faces." And I thought that was weird. He didn't say, "What are you talking about?" But they said, "We want to talk to you because we heard you've been filming us over Lake Erie." And they said, in our past, um, we were known as the Anunnaki. They said, in your past, you were known as Ea Inki, the water bearer. Well, dude, there was no Ancient Aliens on TV. I didn't know what an Anunnaki was. I surely didn't know what a water bearer was, but we can get into that too, because it's weird. That was in 2008, and now, because of my being guided into cosmic harmonious frequencies by the Anunnaki through crop circles, NASA has got involved via, the famous Richard Hoagland, and he arranged for them to look into my technology that has come through this communication. And it was found that, the 432 energy discs I make, well, we can get into that, is opening a portal through the fabric of our space-time and bringing through extra photonic light energy from another dimension. By the way, that's NASA's words, because I asked them, I got all the science data from NASA of before and after photographs of California municipal tap water, Canadian spring water, and Nevian bottled water was the three different waters that they tested, and in every case, it brought through massive amounts of new energy. And so I said, well, wait a minute. If there was no energy, but now there's a lot of energy, where's that extra energy coming from? I said, is it coming from our sun, our planets, our planets' tectonic plates, our own planets in our solar system that are electromagnetic fields? And the biophysicist from NASA, she said, no, it's coming from another dimension. That really toasted my noodle, because I was like, wait a minute. I've never had to ask myself, what does it mean to be drinking water that has energy from another dimension in it? But
It's not a question you find yourself faced with. I do want to get into the 432, but before we jump into that, I want to know a little bit more about. You said you were led to this 432 by looking at all these crop circles that these beings had been doing. Can you share a little bit about how you found that and like how you worked that out, and for other people who don't realize, how can they look through the crop circles to find that information?
Well, I've made it very easy. All you have to do is go to my website, michaelleehill.net, and take a look through my blog section. My favorite part of my website is the blog, because I've been able to share with as much detail as I want, but also as concise as I can, all the graphics and everything of all the crop circles. And so you can find it all there. But it's actually a pretty interesting story because, like I said, when I met them in 2008, they said you were once known as Ia Inki, a water bearer. Like I said, now that kind of makes sense to me. It's like before, I was like, what the hell's a water bearer? Now I got the proof from NASA. I'm like, you know what? I am the water bearer. Would
I
would
didn't
you like
even
to
think of
see?
that, but
Yeah, they've done this over and over again through years of actually enlightening me on what Inky and Ia actually mean. We can get into that, but back then, no clue. I had no idea whatsoever. So at the beginning of 2009, in a state of meditation, because I've learned to meditate deeply, and I asked them. I said, "Listen, if you are who you say you are, and I am who you say I am, encode the name Ia Inky into a crop circle. And I can guarantee you I will take notice. I'm a student of the subject." And then I thought, what a silly request. Can you imagine a big crop circle, like round crop circle with Inky, like written in cursive, and it looks like a big birthday cake? I'm like, well, what the hell's that going to prove, Mike? And this other voice is like, well, figure it out. If you are who you say you are, figure out a really cool way of encoding the name Ia Inky. And then I got really cocky. I said, while you're at it, encode it with something only I would be able to decode. And then I just let it go. And so that was early 2009. The crop circle didn't show up until for 2 years. And it did show up in 2011. And it became obviously that was the beginning of this communication between them and I, and them using crop circles. But during that 2 years of in between time, I they led me into a new science called cymatics. Are you familiar?
slightly. I don't have a big knowledge on it.
It's really cool, man. Cymatics is a brand new science of making the invisible visible. It truly makes frequency visible. And it started off in the past where you'd have a big round metal plate and you'd have sand on it. And then you'd take a bow and it was tuned to a specific frequency with a bow and its contact with the metal plate. So it'd be like, and you could watch the sand dance and geometry would form. What they found was it wasn't random. Every time you hit specific frequencies, specific geometry would form. So first of all, when you know about uh, sacred geometry and start to find out everything from atoms to cells to galaxies are adhering to this same geometry, whether it's seed of life and the flower of life and the Metatron's cube, Fibonacci sequences, the golden mean, etc. But so what I had done was, first of all, you need to know cymatics has now evolved. So they're using water. They're using a big vat of water, and they can pump any frequency through the water and image what it's doing to the surface of the water and have a really high-tech camera that records what's going on. So they, through very early on, started to communicate the importance of the 432 hertz frequency, which today's musical standard is 440. And using the same technology, because I can tell you, using cymatics, you can see that the 432 frequency creates unbelievable geometry and complexity. Well, 440 creates none. It just looks like a puddle.
Yeah,
with no,
unorganized splat.
yeah, no form at all. So what had happened was I tracked down all the notes of the musical scale, because there's a lot more notes than A, right? There's a B, a C, a D, an E, an F, a G, and then back to A. But so this particular day, you have some of my energy discs, so you know what I'm talking about. I
Yep.
had created the first thing I did was I created that Ia Inky crop circle that showed up in 2011. And the reason that I say it's the Ia Inky crop circle is just how I told you I asked them to encode the name Ia Inky. And when you see the crop circle, what you're going to realize is there's a 7-pointed star that it's based off of, and around each point of the star is a row of circles. Some of them are filled in, and some of them are empty, and each one's different. And what you find out is it's actually ASCII binary code, because in the 60s it happened to be my birthday, which is weird. March 11th, 1968, the government put forth a notification to the world and out that any kind of digital communication would be through ASCII binary code. And the famous Arecibo, you know, communication and response was all ASCII binary code. So ASCII binary
Interesting.
code, yeah, it decodes to IA space Inky. So, I was like, oh my God, that was my crop circle I asked for. You know what I mean? So it became very special to me. So I had just made a disc out of an actual image of the crop circle. Then I had all the images collected for the musical scale and with all the appropriate cymatic images. So I went through all the notes, and the very last note I made was an A note. And I'm sitting there looking at it going, why does this look so familiar? What your listeners need to know, it's hard to talk about this stuff without the visual. And you'll see what I'm talking about when you go to the website. But
And
the EI,
if you have a picture on hand, you can always send it too, and I could try to show everybody. I know it's a lot to do while you're in the middle talking, though. So
yeah, I will mess that up horribly.
no worries.
um,
We
but
can send a link to the post too if we find the direct. We have your website already posted, but if we can find that article, me and Clean will look for it tonight and set that up too in the links.
right, well, after this, I can definitely send you all the images. I actually have them all on my phone because what had happened was I had a team working for me in the past, and they're like, what crop circles do you want us to take the crop circle and have it in super high resolution? They're like 4K images. So I gave them the whole list of what was, because this is just the first, you know, and what they communicated to me was the 432 subject and the correlation of the 432 frequency to brand new sacred geometry, which we can get into. But what had happened was I got to the very last note. Well, let me digress. The Ia Inky crop circle, not only does it encode the name Ia Inky in ASCII binary code, but there's a 7-pointed star in the middle of the crop circle. And I didn't, I thought that was cool. It's a very interesting star, and it seemed like it meant something, but I didn't know what it meant. When I got to the end of making the 7 musical note collection of energy discs, the last note was an A, and I make it, I wrap it in copper, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, why does this thing look so familiar? And it didn't come. 2 and 2 was not equaling 4 in my mind whatsoever. And after about 10, 15 minutes, I got kind of frustrated. And this voice is just like, let it go. It'll come. So I just put the disc down. And when I looked over, I seen the Inky crop circle. And what I realized is that A note, cymatic note of A, was a 7-pointed star. And I then realized that they had shown me the relationship of the 7-pointed star to 432, and they're two different ways of expressing the exact same uh, math physics. So what I'm saying is, by the way, it's 27 hertz, which is exactly 4 octaves below 432 hertz, meaning you would never have a 27 hertz pulse or a frequency if you weren't tuned properly 4 octaves higher to 432. When you put 27 hertz through a cymatic device, it creates a perfect 7-pointed star, and it's not debatable. You know what I mean? It's Mother Nature, and
Wow.
it's the frequency itself. And what's really interesting is we can get into this, but first of all, with that first crop circle, when I seen that it was built off of a 7-pointed star, and the 432 frequency created a 7-pointed star, tears flowed. I said, "Oh my God, they did encode it with something only I would be able to decode." It was like revelation, you know. It broke me down in a good way. Yeah, I call that tears of the soul. I'm absolutely convinced there's two different kinds of tears. There's tears of pain, but there's also tears of the soul, and it can happen through a good book, or even looking at a sunset or whatever. When your soul gets moved, your eyes will shed some tears, and that's what kind of tears it was. It was tears of, wow, they this was real, you know. And so the next thing,
Reconfirming all the things that you had experienced. This was, yeah, that's got to be a deep soul connection cry.
yeah, it was. I was just also gratitude, well, thank you of that. But the what had happened was, then the next thing I was brought to is in the exact same field that this showed up as Italy, by the way, a place called Hirono. And so this crop circle showed up in 2011, the Inky crop circle. But in 2010, in the exact same field, another crop circle appeared, and you can tell it's the same author. And in it encoded E equals MC squared. And that was a question to me, because I was like, how come they're encoding E equals MC squared? And I already knew through the Arecibo crop circle that they used crop circles multidimensionally to communicate information across time, and would elaborate on things. So I'm thinking, why does E equal MC squared? What does it have to do with the 7-pointed star and the 432 subject? And instantly they told me, well, Michael, through quantum physics that everything is both particle and wave simultaneously. E equals MC squared is only the particle part of the equation. It's right there, M equals mass. And they said, where's the wave component? If everything's both particle and wave, where is the part of the equation where frequency would fit in? And they told me, look into what 432 squared is. So that's 432 times 432 is C. It is the speed of light within 1% accuracy. So
God damn.
truly, that more tears, right? To find out, to say it in another way, the only frequencies that are truly harmonics of light, and everything is made of light, are 432 base frequencies. And ask Ruben too. We've been into Ruben Langdon, but I'm involved in a new documentary about the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. And he contacted me, said, you ain't even gonna believe this, but we filmed a lady in New York named Emily Ra. And at the end of the session with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, the 13th skull, we asked her, did the skull give you any message to give to mankind? And she said, yes, it showed me a 7-pointed star and the words morning star. So we can get into that. But the deal is 432 base frequencies squared becomes C squared times mass equals energy. And so that was the two first crop circles, and that started the whole thing. And that got really weird, though. We can go through all of them because, one thing I can tell you is this is hard to keep everything in a
Well,
linear.
it's so much, and to ask a human to condense everything they've experienced with what you have experienced through a 90-minute chatting session is definitely a
Well, it's
difficult
good.
thing.
Just check out the website. You'll be able to see, what I'm talking about. But what had happened was I asked them to encode the name Ia Inki into the crop circles but I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know there was going to be more crop circles. I thought encoding the name Ia Inki into a crop circle is pretty freaking cool. And that was probably it. But simultaneously, I was contacted by the NSA's reverse engineering division by a gentleman named A.R. Borden. And I just put out, by the way, and all your listeners, I put out an open challenge to the whole UFO community, podcasters, and truth seekers. Look into who A.R. Borden is. Everyone's waiting for the truth about our contact with extraterrestrial beings from Congress. They don't know anything. It's not going to come through Congress. Wouldn't you want to talk to the person that was the head of the reverse engineering divisions and remote viewing, by the way? Because they found, how do you communicate with extraterrestrials that are going to be communicating through telepathy? So we were all taught, remote viewing. They call it topological thinking. But anyhow, they told me that in this course of study, A.R. Borden, in his introductory letter, which, by the way, I've put that into a blog and it is available. So you can read the actual first letter from the secret reverse engineering division that was already in technology transfer programs with the Anunnaki. It's all available. And he passed away in 2013, but before he passed, he said, "You have permission to reveal, the time for secrecy is over," he said, "and reveal everything that we've given you, because I have a lot of learning material and ebooks and what they call new life physics, and truly the physics of light and sound and how it creates physical reality. And us Native American Indian culture call that star knowledge." And what had happened was when the NSA brought me into the fold, and you'll see this it's called A Letter to Michael. And that was the first actual letter from them. And A.R. Borden said, you have music in you, but uh, not only just to play and compose songs, but to create matter, you need musical intelligence. He said, not only do you need specific frequencies, but you need specific frequencies in specific combination. And more than likely, you'll learn to use the true Pythagorean scale from which all creation comes from, he said. That ends up being A equals 432. But that was back in 2008. And, sure enough, all of that has come to fruition now and come to be. But I guess the point of all this is I started to get learning material from A.R. Borden and this group that was in contact with the Anunnaki. Simultaneously, I was getting information on cosmic harmonious frequencies directly from the Anunnaki using crop circles, kind of like a chalkboard in the classroom. You know what I mean? But again, I was not putting two and two together that I'm in the same classroom. You know what I mean? These two things are not separate. And it took me a while to understand that. But so that was the first two crop circles that were part of this learning curriculum. The next one showed up around 2015, and it was another 7-pointed star, but it was around a massive crescent moon uh, eclipse symbol. And what I found out with that, again, I knew it was related to this because it's a 7-pointed star. I'm like, wow, there's still, and this will come to a head too. Like, where these crop circles now are appearing in the UK, that line that runs through Stonehenge and Avebury and all that. It's named St. Michael and Mary's ley line. It's one of the most energetic and most famous ley lines in the world. And
Yeah.
all these crop circles, that's where they're showing up. You know, not to get lost in this subject, but look at the Earth's latitude line of what St. Michael's ley line, what runs through the Avebury Mounds and Stonehenge. The actual latitude line is 51.428. And this gets very important because guess what? 360 divided by 7 is 51.428, a 7-pointed star. So people keep asking, why are all the crop circles showing up in that area in the UK? Well, there's 7-pointed stars showing up along the Earth's latitude line of 51.428, which is a 7-pointed star. I think they're showing us again multidimensional energy because, you know, getting back to Richard Hoagland, he said, Michael, we know your story sounds batshit crazy, but NASA's been looking into how energy flows multidimensionally. He calls it hyperdimensionally for a very long time, and it just so happens to be your numbers are right on the money. So he had me on his show. We talked about it, and then during the show is when he said, "You know what? I'm gonna arrange for NASA to look into your work." That's a weird spiritual topic, anyhow. Because man, isn't it weird how at least my own internal dialogue was still like, "Oh, don't count your chickens before they hatch." You know, what if they find nothing? You know, and this other voice would
Sure.
kick in and go, "Well, then you've learned nothing. If you think all of this is just by chance, you know,
Well, to
then."
have a crop circle made with the exact thing you wanted is pretty much a point where a lot of people would. But that's the thing in the spiritual journey that never ends is the questioning to make sure that what you think, what you know, and what you believe is real. And I wanted to check in with you too. I'm going to put something up on the screen. You'll be able to see it from where you're
Mhm.
at. Is this the 7-pointed star that you're talking about?
That is it. Yeah, and at each end of the star, see those like dot empty dot, you know?
Yep.
That's the ASCII binary code. And I can like even something that they communicated to me. Let me see where it's at on this one.
So this is the very first one with the inky message you asked for.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. And do you see at the 7-pointed star that it looks like star constellations, you
Yes.
know, in the light part? Um, you see what would be I don't know, about 330. That one has a circle around it, right? At the outside edge. That
Okay.
tells you where to start decoding ASCII binary code. So if you just count the star constellations, it's 3 3 4 4 4 4 5. That's a 7-digit code, and all you got to do is type it in. It's a it's a gene in our human DNA called a universal stress protein, and it helps the body. It determines how well the body handles outside stressors like solar flares, solar radiation, and viruses, which is very interesting.
Holy
So
moly.
yeah, right. So you know, they're telling me that when you create 432 water with this energy that comes from another dimension, it actually unlocks part of your DNA. It has coding within it that helps the human be more prepared for this time of this, you know, the Kali Yuga. And this gets into the point of the morning star as well. And because what happened was that next crop circle, it was a 7-pointed star in front of the crescent moon symbol. Well, what I found out is when you go back to Sumer, every depiction of Enki back then, above his shoulder would be that crescent moon symbol. So again, they're pointing to the name Ea Enki being encoded. It was in a totally different way. But I thought, you know, that's interesting. And yeah, I don't know how you would find that one because I'd love for you to be able to show it.
Yeah,
But
I'll keep looking for it while we're chatting.
right on. Um, the next one that happened, I believe it was when in 2017. There was another. by the way, they had already communicated to me that the end of this cycle was not 2012. It was not the end of the Mayan calendar. It was not the end of the precessional cycle of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And, you know, through my own research, I realized it was 2016 because what you'll find out is all our system of timekeeping even was given to us by the Anunnaki back in pre-Egypt in Sumer. That we came out of the gate with full functioning culture, laws, uh, science, language, and timekeeping. And interestingly, they've given us this idea of multiplying and dividing whole units by 12. So, whether there's 12 inches in a foot, or 12 apostles, or 12 days of Christmas, or, so on and so forth. But look, 12 hours, right? Look at how many seconds is in 12 hours. It's 43,200 or 432. All all timekeeping that's accurate is based on 432. And what's really interesting is I learned from Graham Hancock. He said when you take the height and width of the pyramid and divide it by that same number, 43,200, you get the accurate dimensions of planet Earth.
Holy moly.
Right? So
Question to help me find that picture too on the crop circle. You said it had a crescent moon. Do you know what year it was and what location?
I believe 2015 or 2016, and I know it was the UK. The easiest way maybe is just to hit my website and find, one of the blogs that say the Anunnaki are communicating through crop circles.
Okay.
Because they're all on there, and actually, you can from there pick either the picture or the actual graphic of the information. So the next thing that happened was a crop circle that was another 7-pointed star. I believe this one was in 2017, but it was surrounded in 14 Mayan calendar Baktun. That's Baktun, Baktun. And the Baktun is a Mayan calendar long count symbol. And the Mayan calendar had 13 Baktun cycles, and there was no 14th, and that's why people thought that it was the end of the world, because they're like, oh my god, there's no 14th Baktun, it has to be the end. Well, it was the end of the Mayan calendar for that cycle. And so what I'm saying is truly that was the age of Pisces. The age of Aquarius would be the first next Baktun. So there's no 14th Baktun because it's truly the first Baktun of the age of Aquarius. So, when I found out 2012 was not the accurate ending of the calendar, I just went forward and found, because what you need to know is all 432 base math and physics. Every number resolves to 9. Meaning 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. It's lower octave, which is very easy to find mathematically. You just divide by 2. So 432 divided by 2 is 216. And 2 and 1 and 6 is 9. And then divide 216 by 2 and you get 108. 108 is a very important number to the Tibetan monks, and they have 108 prayer beads and their prayer bracelets, and they'll repeat chants and mantras 108 times. And not only that, their Tibetan singing bowls for the crown chakra are tuned perfectly to 432. So they know what's up. But what happened was I found out the Mayan Baktun symbol, each Baktun is 144,000 days long. Interesting number, right? The 144. 1440. And
this
by the way,
keeps coming over and over and over again and everything.
Yeah, it's part of the, once this starts to unlock, it's very holographic, and any part of it you start to decode leads to all the other parts. you know. But then it's pretty simple math at that point. That, well, what is 144,000 times 14? Because that would give you their actual accurate starting date of the age of Aquarius out of the age of Pisces. And it happens to be 201600000000000000 or 2016. So we are now in the age of Aquarius, and it's official. But man, we just squeaked through the gate. And one of the grandmothers said, the bus arrived late, but still on time. We barely squeaked through. But so those are the first. The first one was the E Inky crop circle. The next one I was drawn to went backwards in time 1 year to the E equals MC squared. Then the next one that they used was the 7-pointed star over the Ea Inky eclipse moon symbol. The next one was the 7-pointed star with the 14 Baktuns, truly telling us the true accurate date into the age of Aquarius. And by the way, when I met the Anunnaki, again, this is in the flesh, face to face, they said that their own succession of kingship for their culture and how they relate to mankind, because they've been involved with human evolution since forever. And they told me that it's all based on the precessional cycle. By the way, the precessional cycle, 25,920 years long, right? And if you divide it by our lowest for the masses division of time, which is 60, right? 60 seconds. 25,920 divided by 60 is 432. It's just mind blowing. You start to realize,
God.
we are living in a 432 based light matrix. And this proves it. Like, even when you learn then that the sun is 86,400 miles across, 864, that's 432 times 2. And the moon is 2,160 miles across. That's 432 divided by 2. That's why we have a full totality eclipse where the moon fits perfectly when it lines up with the sun. And, I started to realize everything. We are living in it makes sense, right? If everything is created from light and light's frequency is 432, of course, everything is going to adhere to this. But it's truly tuning us into aligning with galactic, Tesla 369 technology. Because look at that. Man, I know I'm probably jumping in the rabbit hole deep here, but it's all related. And even I found a cymatic image for the planet Venus. And they took the frequency, like David Sarita is big on actually working with the frequencies of the planets. And NASA has recorded the actual sound coming off the planets. Well, they put that through a cymatic device, and it created a perfect 7-pointed star. So again, getting back to cymatics creating a perfect 7-pointed star when only it's a 432 base frequency, it shows you that Venus, the morning star, is vibrating at a 432 base math and physics in reality. So it really makes me wonder, is everything in the multiverse, when you go to another solar system, if it's made out of light, it's probably all adherent to 432 base math and physics as well. But so that was the next crop circle. The next one really gets interesting. And this happened because of the 51.428 subject that we discussed briefly. I was laying in bed, and obviously they've already guided me right into the 7-pointed star over and over again. And I'm laying in bed, ready to go to sleep, and this voice is like, you need to divide a circle by 7. And I'm like, how about no? I'm going to sleep. You know what I mean? Like, So they wouldn't let it go. And they're like, well, then you've learned nothing. And I've learned to listen when they say that. Like, it's kind of important, you know? So I had to go to my wife, you know, hey, honey, I got to get up and do some math. She's like, all right, you freak, you know, whatever. So I got up and I put, you know, 360, which is a circle, divided by 7, and it came up with 51.428. The first thing that happened, and I got to share this because it's absolutely mind blowing again, and it's just unknown to humanity right now. And that is, you know, I've become friends with Graham Hancock. He's a famous researcher of lost civilizations and whatnot.
Oh
And
yeah, he's a genius. That guy
he
knows
is,
everything about those civilizations.
yeah, he's the one that I learned about multiplying the height and width of the pyramid by 43,200. But check this out. He's got the side angle of the Great Pyramid in Giza at 51.86 degrees. And it's pretty much that's the angle agreed upon by most experts. That is the accurate side angle of the pyramid, the slope angle. And but what they now know is it's actually eight sided, and those eight sides only present themselves twice a year, and that's on the I believe it's the solstices, the spring and
Yeah,
fall.
spring and fall. That's mind blowing. That makes sense though, actually.
Well, what blew my mind was at that point, I thought, well, wait a minute, there's got to be more than one angle. Like 51.86 is can't be the only angle. If there's eight sides, there's a missing angle that only produces itself twice a year. It's hidden, kind of like what Chichen Itza, where at the solstices or equinox, I forget which one, the snake comes down the steps.
Oh yes, yes. On the equinox, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. It's the same culture, by the way. We can get into that. But so 51.86 Graham Hancock side angle. But now we know there's eight sides. So instantly I'm going, well, what's the missing angle? And they said, Michael, subtract your 51.428, a 7 pointed star. Subtract that number from 51.86. I'll save you the trouble and the suspense. Well, guess what it is?
432.
Yes.
Jesus
So wrap
Christ.
your head around that they've encoded 432 into the actual construction and layout and dimensions of the pyramid that will only be revealed twice, you know. So when all this started to come forth and I started to understand it, this was all in one night thing. It was a crazy night of being led to information of why they told me you need to divide a circle by 7. um I That led also to St. Michael's ley line, because this is a very weird thing as well, but it's all weird, ain't it? But the Native American Indian community has, when I was given my spiritual Native American Indian name, which is Rainbow Warrior Eagle, they also recognized me as the incarnation of St. Michael. And they gave me back a crystal sword that represented his sword of truth. They said that it had been in their keep for a very long time. They said it had been made with the same technology as the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, which they said was sound, by the way. And uh, and man, that's not my bag, and I don't claim. But they said Ia and Inki is not. Uh, those are not names; they're titles. Enki means ambassador of the earth, which is strange, or Lord of the earth. N is Lord and Kai is earth. And I just got to say, because, you know, we can get into my work is being taken to the moon by Elon Musk as part of humanity's Hall of Fame crystal time capsule. And the actual, it's called a lunogram that's encoded into this quartz crystal that's going to the moon. Uh, it says Michael Lee Hill, official Earth ambassador. I went,
Yes.
oh, imagine that, right? But anyhow,
And I want to show everybody too who's watching. I'm going to show you guys a crystal of the cymatic 432 in action. This is one of Michael Lee Hill's discs that he creates with the sound 432.
that's it. Yeah, that's what I sent to NASA, by the way. And what happened was I had already learned this art form of creating these. They were called Pleiadian healing discs. The idea was to take sacred geometry, take the idea that certain geometry has certain subtle energy properties, like pyramid power, right? When you put that sacred geometry within quartz crystal glass, which is what this is, and then you wrap it in copper. The copper keeps all the subtle energy from leaving. It keeps it within the disk structure and starts to amplify it and multiply it and work with it. But then when you hold the disc in your hand, your actual fingers connect the circuit, right? And it becomes a very powerful energy device that you can use for Reiki or whatever. So I had already knew how to make these, but what had happened was I ended up hiring the scientists from a company called Cymoscope, who are the leaders in cymatic technology, to image my guitar I recorded in my guitar studio, in my recording studio. But I was meticulous of making sure it was tuned properly. This was the result. And they kind of freaked out over it, by the way. They said, we've used this technology to image everything, every frequency known to mankind. Um, Dolphin noises, baby noises, whatever, but they never seen this kind of complexity or dimensionality in anything that they ever imaged. So they asked me for my permission to release the actual 20-second sound file I sent of the video of this image being created in real time. That's only one still frame out of 20 seconds. It was nothing fancy. I just sent them the wave file, me going, bow, bow,
I,
bow.
I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to lend a bit of insight to everybody here listening too. Um, when we had met Michael, we had bought a couple of discs that he was selling at the event that he had there, and he handed us two necklaces that also had the same symbol in it. And
Yeah.
what happened is, well, first of all, his guitar tuned at 432. He played for us all night. We were at the hotel room. He played guitar all night long. We were listening to music, singing, and
That was
I
a fun
never.
night.
Oh, it was amazing, and I never felt that deeply connected to the music when people like I love music and I love live music and I know a lot of great musicians, but I've never felt that type of energy. And then the discs themselves were amazing. And Kalina just shared in the chat a little while ago that she's had a rough year, me and her both. And she had lost her necklace, not lost it, but it was up with the rest of jewelry for a while. And when she she knew that me and Michael were going to do this show, and she just happened to find it out of nowhere a few days ago, about a week and a half ago, and she has put it on. I was like, "Oh, this is the one Michael gave us," and I said, "Yeah, that's amazing." Since then, all of the rough energy that we've been going through, that's kind of taken a toll on both of us, has been alleviated by a lot. Her stress has lessened. Her focus is back on. So to me, a lot of things in our community can be a little weird and a little hokey pokey, a little airy fairy. And I always tell people to have caution when you deal with anybody in this community, channelers, non-channelers, UFO people, conspiracy, whatever it is. Be cautious. Use your own intuition. But for me and Kalina, we felt the power of 432 and the strength of it, and the testimony from that alone is just something that I wanted to share. You might not have the same experience, but me and Kalina definitely did. And just being in the presence of Michael while he played the music and all of that was incredibly powerful and amazing. Now, and sorry to interrupt, Mike. I want you to continue, but here soon we're going to have we're getting close to the end. We got about 10 minutes left, and I want to take out about 6 minutes to run through a few quick questions with you, a little lightning round we call it, where I just ask you a couple questions,
Right
and
on.
then after that, for you to be able to share your website and all that stuff, we're going to have you on again, because we barely scratch the surface on any of the stuff that we really want, just because it's such an extensive topic. But in for the next few minutes, the next 5-6 minutes, can you share, either continue where you were, just share anything that you think everybody really should take away from this chat so far tonight?
Well, that's a very good question. I do believe it's a miracle that whatever this technology is bringing through very high frequency energy from another dimension, according to NASA. Now, I think its ability to restructure and revitalize water is just the tip of the iceberg. I think it's that photonic light energy is energy before it's become things. I think it's like a quantum reality accelerator. And I know, thank you for your testimonial, by the way, because I think what that energy can do, and I've seen it, is clear chakra centers of lower frequency, lower fear-based negative thought forms that are within our chakra centers. Imagine I'm at, because I speak a lot at conferences, and most of the time I'll have a vending table. When people come up and they want to know what these discs are, and it gets tiring. Like, it's kind of hard. There's a learning curve, you know what I mean? So I've got to the point of just saying, well, can I just show you? And I'll take that disc that's shown right on the screen right now, and I'll go over about an inch over their crown chakra, their forehead. And I'll go in a circle, and it's almost like you can see their eyes. A lot of the times, I'd say 7 out of 10 times, you can see their eyes go brrr. There's like this flutter of activity in their eyelid. And the one girl, her eyes went brrr. She opened her eyes and she said, "I'll take that." It makes it simple stupid. But I really think that energy, it can cleanse chakra centers. It can become more of a building, a pool to draw from. It's like the the universe is giving you more paint to make your own picture of your heaven on earth, and to manifest whatever you want by using this disc, because it's aligning you with this galactic source energy. And what I can tell you, what I would like to say is, they showed me then, in my mind's eye, they showed me going 1/7 away around the circle at 51.428, and they let the rest of the circle fall away, and so it just left one arc, right? Like 1/7 away around a circle arc. And they said that's the true Ark of the Covenant. It was never an ARK, it was an ARC. And the archangels, Michael and the rest of the gang, were never ARK angels, they were ARC, that dealt with like physics of physical creation. So at that point, when they showed me that arc of the 51.428 Ark of the Covenant arc, they floated another one up and met itself as like a mirror, which created an eye shape, right? Like if the two come together. And right when they did that, I said, I'd love to see that eye shape as a 7-pointed star, because that guided me into the 7-pointed star subject. And lo and behold, the next day that showed up in the UK as a crop circle. And they showed me it's a 7-petaled lotus, or a brand new 7-petaled seed of life. Because I don't want to say old, but the one that we know of that goes back to Da Vinci is the 6-petaled seed of life, which creates the Merkaba, which creates the Star of David shape. And it's all straight lines, right? The Merkaba is all straight lines. The 7-petaled seed of life is made of nothing but curves. It's feminine. And so that's what's really fascinating through this communication of crop circles, which all of these crop circles you can see at my website, like I said, that they've shown us a brand. It's almost like the blueprint. If up until now, say 3D, this dimension has been built by the template of the six-petaled seed of life, seven-petaled seed of life is 5D. And it's showing us for the first time ever a brand new sacred geometry blueprint for the next dimensional level.
Man, this topic is so in depth and so amazing, and I'm not exactly a bright guy when it comes to sacred geometry. I don't know all the ins and outs by any means, but I understand there's a power there and there's a creative level there for consciousness, and that's how consciousness connects with physicality and on and on. So there's a lot of great stuff that's there, but the decoding process that you've used for this has been absolutely amazing. Now, I hate to jump from such serious topics to a little bit of playtime, but I always do this with my guest, and I forgot to tell you about this, so I don't want to put you on the spot. What I
That's
do is
all
I
good,
ask a
man.
few benign, benevolent questions, and um, just things that people probably have never asked you before on an interview, so our people can know you better as a person. If you don't want to answer one, just say next, and we'll skip to the
Oh,
next
I
one.
love this. This is like Stephen Colbert's list of questions to get to know the guest. I love it.
Wonderful. I don't think I've watched Stephen Colbert for a while, but that's a good thing to know. Someone's still using tactics to get people to know better. So let's
Perfect.
go with the first one. Let's go. What is your favorite color?
Rainbow.
Rainbow. Beautiful. Yeah. And what is your favorite song and or band? Either or.
Man, this is gonna sound really egotistical, but it's my brand new song that I collaborated with my musical idol. His name's Dan Reed. He opened up 60 shows for the Rolling Stones, and he opened for David Bowie, and he's truly an Arcturian ambassador here on the planet. And so to work with him and create the song Morning Star was a joy. But then all of a sudden, Rudy Sarzo is the original bass player for the Ozzy Osbourne band. And I'm talking about Crazy Train and Over the Mountain and Flying High Again. That's Rudy Sarzo, and he was a huge inspiration. So he was on an interview recently, and he told the host, I'm really been obsessed with this 432 subject. The host was like, "Oh, you got to talk to Michael Lee Hill." Next thing I know, my idol's contacted me for me to tutor him into 432, and one thing led to another. And he's like, "Man, I'd love to lay down a bass track to your song." I was like, "Yes, yes,
Oh,
please." So I'm very, very proud of it, and you can check that out. It's called Morning Star, and again, it is on my YouTube channel, which is Michael Lee Hill channel on YouTube. So you can check it out. But the thing is, it's tuned properly. It's one of the only rock songs ever that is tuned properly. Actually, Prince knew to be tuned to 432, which is interesting.
really?
Yes.
No wonder his music just connected with everybody on every level. I never met
Yeah.
someone who said they hated Prince's music.
Type in Prince and 432, and you'll see he came up publicly. And what had happened was he was always against social media, but at one point he started his own, Facebook and Twitter. He said, "For 8 hours, I'm gonna send in all your questions. I'm gonna answer all the questions." But he ended up only answering one, and that is, should we be retuning our music to the 432 hertz frequency? And his answer was yes, the golden standard. And he posted a link to information. So if you just type in Prince and 432, you'll find out what I'm talking about, and you can follow the link by Prince himself to why it's important. But man, I don't want to just use myself, but man, what song would I say? Hmm, hmm, hmm.
I know you're a music guy, so these are always tough for people who really love music
Hmm.
because there's so much good stuff out there.
Well, maybe Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, and take a deep listen to the lyrics of Kashmir with your third ear.
Yes, I will do that. That's
Hmm.
one of Led Zeppelin songs I don't remember listening to, so that'll be an extra treat to hear
Right
the
on.
new one. All right, so what's your favorite food?
Hmm. Let's go with fish. Any seafood, lobster. Lobster. I'm gonna go with lobster.
Lobster, all
Mm.
right. What about let's see. Let's go with your favorite place to go out in nature for the beauty and atmosphere. What's your favorite place you've ever been in the world?
Lake Erie.
Lake Erie, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and
Some of the sunsets here, dude. The sun comes right down over the lake, and you get the mirroring of the sunset on the lake, and it's one of the most stunning sights. People actually, it's kind of a hidden treasure, but people that know about it, they travel from all over the world to see the sunset over Lake Erie because it's something to behold.
yeah, we get that treat for Lake Michigan over here
Right
because
on.
it's to the west of us too. But me and Kalina had quite the opposite experience. We went to a beach in Lake Erie. It had a nuclear power plant by it, and it was just so gross at
Oh
that one.
man,
I know because I wanted to show her Lake Erie. She had seen the most of the other Great Lakes except for Ontario, Erie, and Huron. So I took her, and it was by Toledo, and what's the other town? The industrial town right by there. So it was the
Detroit.
closest part. In Ohio, northern Ohio.
Ah,
Yeah, whatever
well,
it was.
sorry you had that experience, man. You need come here and I'll take you down here.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I need to know the good beaches over there to take her, and we should meet up and do that. Last question: what is your favorite childhood memory of all times?
Hmm. Probably when my parents got me my first guitar. I would just sit and stare at it. It's like from the best department store, and it was just one of the most magical things I'd ever seen. So going back, that's probably one of my favorite early memories of just a dream coming true. Was my first guitar.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing all these with us. Even though we're running a little over, I want to make sure, first of all, before we get to the part where you share how people can find you, all this stuff, I know we've
Hmm.
set the website and we've got it in links, but um, personally, I want to thank you for coming tonight and for sharing what you've shared with everybody.
Well,
We
thank you for
definitely,
having me.
oh, absolutely, bro. That's no worries. And for being who you are and for sharing what you shared. I know it's a unique experience and I know it's pretty good, but getting to know you has been a great thing for me and the things you share with everyone else to help them understand the complexities of the sound vibration, geometry, your experience with your guides and connections with Anunnaki and all the things that you've done. It's been really amazing. But also, as a person, you're a good guy. You're a kind person. You enjoy life, and you're really a unique person who I've come to really love. And I appreciate you being here and sharing. And I appreciate you sharing what you share outside of the show. So thank you for that. And I want to say too, wherever you want to lead people to look at this information a little more deeply, or anything that you've got coming up, anything you want to share, please do.
I would say, michaelleehill.net. And like I said, check out the blog section, but also all of the learning material and ebooks that I received from A.R. Borden and the reverse engineering division, I have put into two Facebook groups. One's called Team Inky. And if you just go to Team Inky and, sign up for that group and then go to the file section, it's all just waiting for the right people to find it for free, and it's just waiting, and it's the highest level of information from you know the NSA, actually, that's part of these reverse engineering divisions with the Anunnaki. So you can imagine it's some very high level information. So check that out as well. It's all waiting for you. And by the way, back at you with everything you're doing. And right when we met, I was like, y'all felt like home to me. So thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure to touch base again.
Absolutely, brother. And me and Kalina felt the same way. It's that we knew you a lot longer than the one day we had met you. We had met you many lives before and
Yeah, I
traveling
think we go
together.
way back.
Absolutely, we do. And I appreciate everything, brother. So you guys hear it. Go to michaelleehill.net. Check out all the information that's there. Thank you again, brother, for coming. And I want to let you guys know, thank you for being super active in the chat and for hanging out and spending time. I also want to let you know that next week we have the one and only Gordon Goosenberry, who is here. And we will have all the information to share ahead of time, and all the guests coming up. We'll make sure to get you out the posters, links, and everything for that. Thank you guys for sharing. As you guys know, Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. We are here every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. That's 7 Pacific Time. Every Wednesday, rain or shine, we'll be here if possible, and we will bring a guest so you guys can listen to their stories, perspectives, energies, experiences, and everything in between. And next week will be a bit of a different type of thing. We have Project Xena, which is worked upon, which has nothing to do with metaphysical UFO, ET community, or anything in it. Just like my friend William from Stage of Prone Gaming when he came on, but everyone enjoyed it then, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it next week. So tune in. I'll be here with you guys live. Thanks again for chat. Love you guys very much. Thank you all so much for coming, and we'll see you guys next week on the other side. Love you.